Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tune. Today we're going to be working on my Honda S2000 here, and I want to do a little bit of a turbo comparison today, and I got the car strapped down onto the dyno, and we're going to do a couple pulls with the current turbo that's on it, which is a VS Racing 6262 that you can pick up on huntertune.com. Thanks for all the support on the website. But I want to do a couple pulls with this turbo, and then I want to swap it out for a smaller turbo. I actually have a VS Racing 4849 here, and both of these turbos are V-band, so they're very easy to just like pop on and off, and I figured it'd be a cool comparison to do some pulls with the 6262 and then do some pulls with the 4849 to see how much power we lose or gain switching between turbos, or if there's no difference at all. I want to know, and I think it'd be cool to see you know, the differences in power curves, how the power comes in, how responsive it is, and stuff like that. And maybe I might downsize the turbo on the car depending on how the power curve looks between the two. You guys know Honda S2000s have a very high revving engine, and they kind of don't really do anything until about 6,000 RPM. Once they hit 6,000, they really start singing, and they love RPM, and they make all their power way up top. It's kind of just a characteristic of a VTEC engine. But if I downsize the turbo, this is kind of my theory of downsizing the turbo, it might give me a broader power band that's a little bit more usable all over instead of needing to wring this thing's neck to get it to move. Not saying that it doesn't, because it's plenty fast. This car makes nearly 500 horsepower in current configuration. And we're going to test it as is right away here now. To see what kind of power it's making right now as is, and then we might play around with boost a little bit to kind of do this as a fair comparison between the two turbos. I don't want to be maxing out the small turbo and then blaming why the bigger turbo made more power. I want to kind of put the smaller turbo in a range. I want to put the smaller turbo in a range where it's not creating a bunch of like heat and back pressure. So like maybe we can lower the boost down to like 10 pounds and do 10 pounds on the 6262 and then do 10 pounds on the 4849 and look at the difference in power and maybe see the different, you know, we'll just see the comparison between the two. But currently this car's on about 15 pounds. So I want to do a pull as is, and then we might lower the boost down to that 10-ish range. And then maybe, yeah, we'll do a pull on, you know, 15 or whatever it's on now. We'll do a pull on 10. I'll pull a wastegate spring out of it. We'll do like 10 and then do 15 pounds and then try to do the same thing with the other turbo. So let's get right to it. Just got my laptop. We're going to plug in the Haltech and get some data logs of each of these pulls too, so we can kind of see exactly how much boost each is making. I forgot how rowdy this thing is. But we got two data logs, we did two pulls. We'll kind of see where stuff is at currently. I think this thing's making quite a bit of boost. And it's probably making quite a bit of power. But we might turn it down just to do some turbo comparison testing, but I wanted to see where it was at currently. Yeah, we made 510 horsepower. The first pull made more power. I just didn't rev it as high. as the second pull. And then the second pull made less, but it made more because I revved it higher, but it got a little bit more heat soaked on the second run. Let's see here if we can. So 510 wheel at 8,600 it looks like. And yeah, so the second pull I spun it, you know, right around 9 grand or so. And the one before that I lifted at like a little over 8. So I'm gonna check out the logs real quick and we'll see what kind of boost that was. And then we will maybe lower the boost and do some comparing and contrasting with, yeah, let's just, we'll lower the boost. Or do we not? I don't know, we'll see. Let me look at these logs. All right guys, so we did those 2 runs kind of back to back, one a little bit warmer than the other. And I got some data logs here that I want to go over with you guys and show you the kind of another reason I want to slightly downsize the turbo is because with this current manifold and stuff that's on here and the 44mm wastegate, it is boost creeping above like 7,500 RPM or so, and above like 8,300 RPM, it boost creeps pretty bad. I mean, the base spring pressure in this thing is supposed to be right around like 13 or 14 pounds. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see on this chart here. But this, I don't even know what color this is, brown. This like brown line where my cursor is the manifold pressure. So this is the boost. And you can see it slowly starts ramping up and then it levels. So this is all level boost right here in this section. And then right up at the top end, you can see it starts shooting up. So if we look at the peak boost where it should be, is right around 14.5 pounds. So that's probably about the max that this wastegate spring setup should run. And that was 7,700 RPM, 13 pounds, 13.5, 14.5 there. We made 12.5 at 5,700 RPM, but it's almost like it's just constantly building boost, and it never really levels off that well. And then above 8,000, you can see it really starts to run away. 16, 17 pounds, 18 pounds, 18.6, 20 pounds at 8,700. 8,800, we're at 21 pounds of boost, and that's pretty much the end of the log. So it doesn't really have a steady boost curve to work with, and it's just because the wastegate and the manifold placement and stuff like that can't evacuate all the exhaust at that high of RPM. These engines are really high RPM screamers, so it's kind of hard for, which I'm not doubting, this manifold's great. The wastegate placement is awesome, but it still just isn't enough for that 9,000 RPM that we're dealing with here. So a lot of guys with S2000s will do a twin gate or something like that, but for this, we're working with what we got. So we made that 500 horsepower, but really it was on like 20 pounds to do it. So I want to swap the turbo, and I'm going to see, I'm not going to touch the air fuel or anything. We can kind of go through this. You can see the wideband O2 right here, 11.0 air fuel. And it was kind of hanging out in the bottom 11s pretty much the entire pull here. You know, around 17 degrees of ignition timing. This is on E85. And then the ignition timing falls away as the boost increases there. And yeah, so, but bottom 11s we're working with here. Air fuel, short-term trims and stuff are looking really good. But I wonder if we swap this turbo, if we're gonna make kind of the same mid-range power that is here already, but we won't have the giant boost creep. And hopefully we can make a little bit broader power band. Not saying that this is not a broad power band, because it really kind of is. It's pretty wide, but let's see if we can make it even wider. I also wanted to show you kind of where this thing came into boost. Right when I floored it, back here. 2,600 I started flooring it. And we weren't making any positive pressure until about 3,000 RPM. We're making, you know, 0.2. We didn't make a full pound of boost until about 3,400. 3,400 we made a full pound. 4,000 RPM we were making 2.7 pounds. Sorry if there's a glare. Let's see what 4,500 is at. 4,500 we're at 4.5 pounds. 5,000 we are at 8.3 pounds. And then we're at our, what I would assume is about wastegate pressure finally at about 6,000 RPM. And then it kind of levels for a second at around 13, but it's just constantly building. So I want to see if we can get that boost a little bit flatter and maybe get it to come in a little bit sooner. So I'm gonna swap out the turbo to the 4849 and we'll compare the power curves. I'm really curious how this is gonna look, and hopefully we can get a handle on the boost so it's not running away to 20 pounds, because I would really love it to just make, you know, 14 pounds and be done. Another thing that I wanted to mention is I do think that this car has some back pressure issues, and that might be why it's boost creeping so bad and why maybe it's a little slower to spool up, because it does have a 3-inch all the way to like the middle of the car, and then after the middle of the car it has like 2.5-inch NVIDIA catback. And I think that catback being 2.5 inches coming out to the two tailpipes is actually hurting us pretty substantially. So I would love to repeat this test again with a full 3-inch exhaust. Maybe just changing to a 3-inch exhaust will alleviate a lot of the boost creep, but I want to see what it does just with a smaller turbo. Maybe it'll get worse. I don't know. Alright, so I'm pulling the turbo off of this thing currently. I'm just kind of showing you guys what I'm doing. I think just for simplicity's sake of this video, I'm not going to touch the wastegate. Whatever wastegate springs are in here, we're going to leave them the same. Otherwise this video is going to be like 2 hours long. So I'm just removing the turbo. I got the V-band on the downpipe off. I have the feed line disconnected, and I have the intercooler pipe disconnected as well. So now I just have to loosen up the V-band going to the manifold, and then the return line I have to remove. And then this turbo will come off, and we'll put the other turbo on, and I'll show you the differences between the two turbos once they're both on the bench. Alright, so we got both turbos sitting side by side. The one on the left is the 6262, and the one on the right is the 4849. So they both have the same size outlet on the compressor housing here. The wheels are obviously smaller. This is a smaller wheel than this, and the back housing, the turbine housing, is also smaller on this one compared to this. This is a 0.83 AR, 2.5-inch in, 3-inch out. This is a 0.72 AR with the same 2.5-inch in and 3-inch out. So pretty cool. It's pretty much a direct swap, and we're just going to bolt this guy on and see the difference without really doing any tuning. As long as the air fuel stays good, I'm just going to do a pull without touching tuning or anything like that. It's going to have the same ignition, the same wastegate springs. It might make different boost, and we'll see, but I'd be really curious. So I'm going to get this thing bolted on and transfer it over onto the car, and hopefully this thing doesn't scatter rods out of it, because this turbo, I'm assuming, is going to light off like a supercharger. So pretty exciting stuff, guys. I've been wanting to do this swap for a while, but I haven't done it because I wanted to optimize the exhaust before I did it, but I said, "Ah, the hell with it, I still want to do it." And maybe we'll optimize the exhaust later and see what the difference is once the car has like a full 3-inch exhaust. It still has a pretty good flowing exhaust, but it's just not quite enough, I don't think, for this 9,000 RPM Screamer. So let's get her swapped on. Alright guys, so I got the 4849 bolted onto the car. You can probably tell on video it's much smaller, but this turbo is brand new. I've never even ran it. It's just been sitting on the bench for so long. It's got surface rust on the housing there. But yeah, so no shaft play, spinning nice and free. Got the oil lines all on and everything tightened down, no leaks. So yeah, let's floor it and see what the difference is in the data logs and the power graph. See what kind of boost it makes comparatively to the other turbo. And yeah, I might have to record with my cell phone from here on out because my camera battery is dying. So enjoy these pulls. Let's see what happens. All right, guys, so the results are in with the 4849 on the S2000. No tuning was done, no ignition changing, no fuel changing, anything like that. It was very rich on the bottom end because it was making more boost down low, and the tune, it never hit those cells before, so they're pretty rich cells, like 9.8 air fuel. But here's the comparison between the 6262 and the 4849. All right, guys, I think I got the fuel a little bit better on the bottom end, below like 5,000 RPM, and we'll see what it does now. All right, guys, so I went home and got my camera battery charged because I got to keep talking about this for a second because this data is too good. And it makes me really want to convince you guys to not over turbo your setup. A smaller turbo, in my opinion, is going to go faster if you can actually make the power goal you want. Get the smallest turbo possible that meets that goal. Just because you're going to have a way broader power band. And it's very interesting seeing the results here. 510 to 430. 430 was on 10.5 or 11 pounds of boost, and the 510 was on a lot more boost. So one more time, let's just look at the power curve here. This is just horsepower we're overlaying. And you can see the smaller turbo, if we go at like, I don't know, 4,500 RPM. So this is about 4,500 RPM right here. On the 6262, we were making 157 horsepower. And 4,500 RPM on the 4849, we were making 220. So like 160 to 220. That's 60 horsepower on the bottom that it picked up before VTEC. And that was with a 9.8 air fuel, because I told you guys I wasn't going to change the fueling on the tune. But I kind of want to do another pull fixing the fuel down low, because the 6262 air fuel was perfect all the way up. Where I didn't have it tuned in down low on the 4849. Damn, dude. Yeah, this thing makes 10 pounds of boost at 4,000 RPM. And it makes, here, this is the log from the 4849 that I'm going to go over with you guys real quick. Sorry about the glare in the background. I'm trying my best here. Let me maybe move the chair here. There, is this better? I think this is better. Okay, so we started to pull. We're going to walk through this data log real quick. We started to pull at like 2,700 RPM, and I went 100% throttle. So 2,700, no boost, no boost, no boost. 0.1 pound of boost at 2,800. A half a pound of boost at 2,900. At 3,000, we're making about a pound and a half. 2 pounds at 3,200. 3 pounds at 3,300. 4 pounds at 3,500. 3,600, we're at 5 pounds. 6.5 pounds at 3,700. 8.3 pounds at 3,900. 4,100, we're at 10.7. 4,300, we're at 11.5 pounds. And then 11.7 at 4,400, and that's peak right there, peak boost. And then it just hangs 11.7 pounds all the way up, 11.8, 11.7, very consistent boost level here. Air fuel's 11.0, and down here, you can see it went rich. 10.6, 10.5, 10.4, 10.2, 9.7 air fuel at 3,700. So we got to clean up, look at this, 9.3 air fuel at 4,200. That's pretty much where I just did the comparison where we picked 60 horsepower up. I bet you we can pick up almost 100 horsepower just fixing this 9.3 air fuel down here. 9.1, yeah, and then as soon as VTEC hit at 4,700 or so, yeah, 4,800 I have VTEC set, then the air fuel fixed itself. But below like 4,800, I gotta pull a ton of fuel out of this thing. So between like 3,500 and 4,800, I gotta pull out like probably 15% of fuel, which I think I'm gonna do, and then we'll run it back and see how much more power we can pick up on the bottom. Like I said, I bet you we can make almost 100 horsepower below 5,000 RPM compared to the 6262. And yeah, like I said, it just held 11 and a half, 12 pounds of boot, like 11.6, 11.7, 11.8 pounds all the way up until about 7,500. Then we were down to 11 pounds and 77, 7,800, 8,000, we're down to 10.6 pounds. And then by 8,300 I lifted. But we're having pretty much the exact opposite issue with the small turbo. It's falling on boost at high RPM instead of boost creeping. And that's just because the turbo is smaller. It probably runs out of steam, like up top. I don't think this turbo is out of breath. I really don't. I think we can put some more to it, whether that be with boost control or wastegate springs or whatever, to get that boost up where the 6262 was. If the boost is matched, I think they're gonna make the same power. Like, if both of them made 14 pounds consistently all the way up, I think they would both make the same amount of power. Maybe the smaller one would make more, I don't know. But I really love how smooth and linear the power is now with the smaller one. Instead of it being like boost creep way up top, it made the car feel really peaky. So like at 8,000, it would be like, whoop! It would pick up all of a sudden at 8 grand, and all of the power leading up to that felt like it was just building, 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 building. Where this is gonna be like, come into power and just sit there, you know, which is what you want. I think that's gonna feel faster, and I bet you it's gonna win more races at the end of the day. But I don't know. I'm just a guy out here with a dyno and playing around with stuff. I don't know anything, but I do know that it's making less boost with this turbo, and it's not making that much less power. And I really wish we could get some more boost in it up top to match what the boost was with the 6262, but I don't know how I'm gonna be able to do that. And this video is probably already really kind of long and ranty, but this is really interesting, and it's really convincing me to keep this baby turbo on this car, because I don't really want to make more than like 450 on this car, maybe 500. But if it can make that kind of power all over, that's going to be way more enjoyable of a car and way more fun on the street especially. And I think it'd be faster at the drag strip too, but that's testing for another day. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff, guys. I'm pretty excited about this, and I'm pretty happy I put a really small turbo on this car. Hopefully the added power down below 5,000 RPM doesn't hurt this motor, but we got E85 in it. We'll try to keep the detonation out of it, and hopefully Uncle Rodney doesn't go bendy. So in conclusion, I do think people always say a bigger turbo makes more power on the same boost, and I don't think that's true. I think the bigger turbo naturally is going to make a little bit more boost on the same configuration. Like I said, I didn't change wastegate springs, I didn't change manifolds, I didn't change anything other than the turbo, and the car made less boost because of it. If I just had this turbo on the car, configured it like this, and then I put a bigger turbo on it, it made more boost with the other turbo, same configuration. So I don't know what that says, if there's just like a back pressure buildup, or the wastegate cannot evacuate the bigger turbo's exhaust. It can't alleviate enough exhaust on the bigger turbo, and that's why the bigger turbo made more power. But like I said, if the wastegate scavenging was the same on both and both of them made the same exact boost pressure the whole way through the pole, I think they're going to make the same. But naturally the smaller turbo is not going to be capable of making the same boost on the same configuration, you know what I mean? So you might have to change up the springs and do some more boost control stuff to get that turbo to make more. But usually when the turbo starts falling off and it doesn't make as much power, it's usually falling off on boost at the same time. So bigger turbo probably makes more boost, but if both turbos make the same boost, you know what I'm saying, guys? I hope this babbling is making sense. But I really want to optimize this tune, so I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, so it still did go a little bit rich on the VTEC crossover. Yeah, and it didn't really change on the power level, so maybe it likes being 10.0 down there. But it did make 435 that time, just because I revved it a little bit higher. But yeah, you guys will have to let me know what you think of this. What do we do next? Do we try to just turn the boost up to match what the 6262 is making? Maybe we should do that in the next video and we can compare the curve with that. But I want to show you torque as well. So let's compare just torque. We compared just horsepower previously, so here's the run we just did comparing. This is horsepower, so you can see it picked up a ton down here, but it did lose a little bit up top. Comparatively up top at 8,000 RPM, let's see here, 8,000, we were making 430, and on the other turbo we're making 490, so about 60 horsepower difference here, but also 60 horsepower down here. So, but then again, like I was saying, the reason it's not making the big number up top is because it's not making the same boost. It's making less boost on the big end. You know what I mean? So hopefully this stuff is making sense, guys. I think these are really good videos to make and pretty educational for you guys. And hopefully you learn something from it, and don't always put the biggest frickin' turbo you can think of on your car, because this car is going to be so much more fun. I'm excited. All right, let's compare torque now, just torque. So you can see how much the blue line is the 4849 and the red is the 6262. So you can see it's kind of a slouch down here below 5500 or so. And then it picks up and it goes flat. And this one is pretty smooth almost all the way through. It does fall off a little bit up here, but the boost also falls off up top a little bit. So like I said, and this red line was creeping up. The boost was going up with the red line. So I don't know, there's so much here to digest. I don't know what to think of it. I think we need to get some more boost through this little 4849 and really see what this puppy can do, because I bet you this 4849 will still make 500 horsepower. And it's the turbo I'm picking for my single cam build, and you guys know that. But I haven't gotten the single cam build done, and the turbo has just kind of been sitting here. But I said, the heck with it, let's put it to use and get some data with it. I think this is awesome. It's clearly capable of at least 435 horsepower. I bet you it's capable of 500. I really do. So stay tuned for the next video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Have a great night and a better tomorrow. And God bless everybody out there. Thank you for watching. Thank you, God, for another beautiful day. And thank you, God, for a beautiful S2000 here. And thank you to everybody out there that watches my videos. I really do appreciate it, and your support does not go unnoticed. So leave a like, a comment, I'll check them out and reply to all the ones that I can. So have a great night and a better tomorrow, guys. We'll see you later.